Backstage with Mothership on Solid Rock Radio begins now. Hear the best in new music, artist interviews, stories from the road, and more. You are now backstage, and here's your host, Mothership.
Hey everybody, another band signed to the new label Crossover Records with their first album in over a decade. Let's find out more. I have Dose of Adolescence here, and you guys have been around for about 24 years, haven't you?
Yeah, give or take.
But there was a little hiatus in there, and now you're back with a new label and some new music. So who exactly is Dose of Adolescence?
Dose of Adolescence is Timmy and Jimmy Brown.
What was your reason for starting the band?
I think for me, honestly, if I look back at it, I didn't see it at the time. My brother and I had different situations happen in childhood that caused, I guess you would say, I don't know if I would say extreme trauma. I guess I would say extreme trauma. I think for me, as I look back, and I can't answer for both of us, but I think for me, music really was an outlet for me to really share what I was going through, without needing to completely say what I was saying, because I couldn't really say it to anyone. And I think music really for me was a way to share what was going on inside of me without really saying it. So it kind of I know that music didn't save my life, because ultimately I know, that the Lord gave it to me to bring me through that process. But it was I think music was a beginning step for me for something that allowed me to process what I was dealing with. And it gave me something to strive for and hope for and kind of keep me alive.
That seems to be kind of a common theme when I talk to artists. Some are just driven creatively to write, but some say it's for their own mental health. They've just got to release that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree to an extent. It was an outlet for me. I also realized really quickly when we first started. At first, I wanted to do it just because I loved the style of music that we were playing. I loved punk rock. I thought it was cool. I thought it was fun. It gave me something to do, because my entire childhood, before that, I thought baseball was my life. And then I just had gotten kind of grown out of that, and I'd really fallen in love with that style of music, that genre of music. But then as soon as I realized how much music can help people, I've just always wanted our songs to touch people's hearts, to help them through things that they're going through, just if it could mean anything to them. That's all I really ever wanted it to do, or that's why I do it.
So once it comes out of you, it's just a love offering for your fans.
Yeah.
I think especially in the last couple months for me, it's become a thing of where I'm willing to put my junk on the altar, in hopes that it would speak to someone else. I'll be the first one,
Yeah. It helps other people kind of look inside themselves and see what's going on in their own lives and kind of apply that. And
I think when you're willing to share the deep, hard, painful things of your life, it creates this safe space for other people to share. And a lot of people, unfortunately, don't feel safe to share in the church.
Absolutely. Around 2000, when you guys started out, what was going on in your life that you could share?
At that time in my life, I was still partying. I was mainly just focused at that time when the band started of I want to be a rock star.
Yeah.
We were still living with our dad. We were both getting into adulthood. Weren't really making the best choices. Always trying to play, be around people. We grew up in Southern California. I don't know if there was much else going on really. That's just the gist of it.
I understand your dad raised you by himself.
Yeah,
Slowly.
he got custody of us when I was 2 years old.
Okay.
I remember seeing my mom, but I couldn't sit here and tell you that I knew much about her.
So Timmy, are you the oldest or youngest brother?
I'm the youngest. Yeah.
What about you, Jimmy? Anything you want to share?
Your first question was what was going on when we started the band.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the same for my brother. It was creative. It was cool. It seemed like something to do. I was drawn to it. I don't think in the moment or in that time I actually knew why I was drawn to it so much. But I really believe it was a way that the Lord gave me to share what I was processing through, Like my brother said, our dad got custody of us when he was 2. I was 5. I think we saw our mom maybe a handful of times from the time I was 5 until I was 11. And a month after my 11th birthday, our mom committed suicide. So Timmy would have been 7 years old. I was freshly 11.
Wow.
And I really think that we both just had so much, I love our dad to death, but he also had his own things, he wasn't
Yeah,
walking
yeah.
with the Lord. So we had not only the absentee mother that wasn't around and then the suicide, but we also had a dad that was struggling through his own stuff and trying to raise 2 kids on his own. So I think both of us were just kind of in turmoil, maybe not even knowing it then. His music really was just an outlet for us, something to love, something to chase, but also not understanding that at the same time it was kind of like therapy for us.
Yeah. Losing your mom that way, I'd imagine you internalized that, or that felt very personal to you. Maybe you felt like it was your fault.
I did. I think all kids, whenever there's any, even if it's not like a death or just a loss of like a marriage, a divorce, anything, you always wonder, what did I do wrong? And then you get angry about it too as you
Hmm.
grow and like think more about it.
Yeah.
I was angry. I just always wanted to know what it was like to have a mom, I guess is the best way for
Yeah.
me to describe it. Because I would see my other friends and their moms were, for the most part, they were all pretty awesome and like they loved their kids. And they were a few that God blessed me to have in my life were very motherly to me as well. And
Yeah.
I'm thankful for that. And I just always wondered, like, why didn't I get to have this?
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
then on the other hand, too, I remember being a kid and growing up, and I would get angry and want to fight people if they talked about my mom. Because, I don't know. Kids just don't really know.
Yeah. How to handle all those emotions. That's just a
Yeah.
lot.
You can't rationalize.
Yeah.
You just act typically.
Yeah. Yeah. Handling a violent loss like that is difficult enough as an adult, but handling as a child, I just can't even imagine. Did your dad tell you what happened?
We both had an inkling, like we knew that that's what it was, but I think adults have tried to spare us from really
Yeah.
knowing and didn't tell us the truth.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I knew that it was suicide at 10 years old, and I think that really just goes back to the way God speaks to me.
Yeah.
Whether someone told me or not, I knew at 10 years old that that's what it was.
Yeah.
11 years old.
She must have been really struggling.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think I understood that aspect until I was in the space of I had 2 choices because I came into agreement with the lie at 13 years old that I would also die by suicide. My life with that from 13 till I was 33, and I was basically either going to take my life, and at the last moment, Jesus stepped in and
Wow.
everything is different. And I don't think I understood, and I still don't because I chose a different path. Um, Getting to that point to where I was ready to make that choice,
Mhm.
and then after it, choosing to accept Jesus, it really hit me hard of how much pain must she have been in because she actually made that choice,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the pain that I was in,
Yeah. Absolutely. So how did you hear about the gospel?
The week before I was basically planning my suicide. And that's funny. I was thinking about this morning. Normally these thoughts would become overwhelming when I was under the influence of alcohol or drugs or things like that.
Mhm.
And during this time, I was having these thoughts and they were becoming overwhelming while I was sober, which was really scary. I really had bought into, this is the best case scenario for me to take my life, We had opened up a show for a couple different bands, one of them being Switchfoot, one of them being POD. And Sonny, the lead singer of POD, had started an outreach called the Whosoevers with a guy named Ryan Reese. I know, and Brian's involved and a couple other like well-known believers. And I, honestly, if I'm being really, really open, when we met Ryan Reese that night, I didn't remember meeting him because I was so drunk. He had invited us down to church. And for me, I'm thinking, oh, this will be good for our band. I should go, I felt like the Lord had been after me for a while. And we went to church, and after church, Ryan Reese, one of the founders of the Whosoevers, and his assistant took us to dinner. And for some reason, obviously the Lord, Ryan asked his assistant to share his testimony. And he was the first person that I had ever heard share openly about their struggles with suicide, because up until the last couple of years, like it's been kind of like I don't know what the word is, but like people don't talk about their struggles, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he shared his struggles with suicide and what Jesus had done in his life. And I was just like so blown away by it. And basically the way that I was planning on taking my life, I basically cried out to Jesus, Jesus, if you're real, I need you to come into my life because I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The next day I felt that something, I felt different, you know, I felt almost as if I was high on something. Now having the language for it, I had the deposit of the Holy Spirit. So yeah, that's how.
Mm. Wow. Jimmy, it's okay if you don't want to answer this, but I'm curious about something. You said earlier that you knew that you wanted to go out by taking your own life. Did it give you a feeling of power or control over your life, knowing that you knew when the beginning and the ending would be?
I wouldn't say it was a feeling of control. I think it was more, I think with everything I understand now and looking back at it, I think it really was just like an identity issue. Not understanding that I was a son, not understanding my worth. And I think, you know, like Timmy said, when your parent passes when you're young, it gives you all kinds of different questions, right?
Right.
You obviously struggle with your self-worth. And I think it really boiled down to like just an identity issue, a lack of love, a lack of basic needs being met. So I think it was just that, a
Okay.
self-worth thing.
Oh, sorry. Self-worth thing, you said.
Yeah.
Okay. Timmy, what about your faith journey?
Me, a woman in our neighborhood that used to watch me after school. I went to school with her daughter. Would take us to like a Catholic school type of like thing. Back when I accepted Jesus in my life, I just didn't really know what all that entailed and what I was really doing. And then when he got saved, it helped bring me like back to it. I had never ever like stopped believing throughout that period in between. I just prayed at night, didn't really know what I was doing, and just always believed that Jesus was who he said he was.
After your encounter with Christ, how did things change for you?
I think for me, there was definitely a supernatural grace on
Okay.
my life.
Mm.
After that, I think my walk has still been a struggle because there was so much to clean out, and I'm
Uh-huh.
still going through that process. You know, we go through that process till we leave.
Yeah.
Um, I think the most immediate change that I would say is just the supernatural grace on my life, and
Yeah.
the fact that I had humbled myself enough to accept Jesus and begin to start following His way, or my best to follow His way.
I don't think anything immediately changed at that moment, but I think God started slowly taking all the crud out of my life over the
Yeah.
years and definitely worked on me, tore down a lot of walls and started a remodel is what I tell people a lot of times. It took some time. It still took a handful of years. And I'm still obviously not perfect, but much
Yeah.
different person than I was then.
Well, being self-aware is a really big deal.
Yeah.
What was y'all's first gig?
Our very first gig was actually our high school lunch. We played at our high school at lunchtime. And then we played like, I think almost within a couple of weeks time frame, we also played at a smoothie like juice spot right
All
next
right.
to the school called Pacific Juice and Java. Is no longer there.
Yeah, because you left, they shut down. Right.
Yep.
Okay. So music-wise, all right, you had a little taste of it. How did that feel to get up there and finally just put all that out there?
I always just felt so like comfortable and at home when we played live. Never
Okay.
really felt nervous. I don't know. I guess the best way to describe it just feels like the ultimate high while you're up there. It just
Yeah.
feels good. Feels like you're releasing things.
West Coast scene back in the late 1990s and 2000s, the music scene was huge.
Yeah, it was.
So I can see where y'all were attracted to that
Yeah.
immediately and wanted to be part of that scene. So let's talk a little bit about your musical touring journey.
I think we traveled quite a bit over the years. We never really knew exactly what we were doing. We just kept trying things, and we
Right.
would always be willing to work hard at it. We toured on our own multiple times. We followed Warped Tour in 2008. Then we went out to do it again in 2010. My brother talked to Kevin Lyman, and we got to play the line that year, the entire summer. We were on the Ernie Ball stage in 2013. We actually went out in 2018 and we worked on the tour. We got to play a handful of times. Our dad who I believe was 80 at the time, who went out on that whole tour with us and our dogs.
Go Dad.
Yeah. I just think we always would try whatever we knew. My brother would come up with ideas and we would go for it. And the main reason why we took the hiatus was because our dad was just getting older and we knew we couldn't keep taking him out. We took him out on another tour in the fall of 2018 and it didn't feel right to keep doing that. So we were like, we should just take a break and focus on taking care of him. And that's what we did.
That's awesome.
He passed away in 2021.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know Kevin Lyman from Warped Tour really had an impact on you guys' ministry. Jimmy, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think for us, it started with the fact that Warped Tour was just like one of our favorite things growing up and being in the music scene. And it was, when we started, we didn't really have too many goals. One of the goals being to play Warped Tour. And I think just the more that we learned about Warped Tour, the more that we learned about who Kevin Lyman was, and then we were able to experience that firsthand. You know, Kevin is a man that is really willing to share the knowledge that he's obtained and also give people opportunities. Yeah. And I think for us, we saw a lot of those opportunities given to us by him. And you just ultimately gain this respect for someone like that, you know, someone that is humble and kind and has navigated the industry for 30, 40, I'm not sure how long he's been in the industry, but just navigated the industry as long as he has and still just continuing to be the same person as when he started, just kind, humble, and generous.
Sounds like he really enjoys mentoring.
Yeah, I would say so.
So Dose of Adolescence is a little hip-hop, trap, EDM, pop, rock.
I mean, when we first started out, it was just like you said, living in Southern California at that time. I was really into like punk rock. I had heard a couple of things, and then I heard Blink-182's Dude Ranch, and that like did it for me. That was like my style of music for a good chunk of my young adult life after that. And after we did like our first record, we really set out to just write from our heart always. And I mean, my brother and I, we've also both grown up listening to hip hop as well. Where we're at now came about. We played South by Southwest back in, I don't even remember when it was, but we met a couple of guys that had worked with our producer that were like friends of his. And Jimmy was talking to them and we were just like, hey, you know, maybe we could do a song together. We didn't even really think that it would actually end up happening. We did one with them, and then Kevin actually, as a matter of fact, had heard it and was like, you know, I think you guys are onto something here. You guys should explore this. So we explored it, and then that whole record came out of it over time, and that's how we got to where we're at right now.
Wow. What happened first? Did you guys decide you wanted to do a new album, or did Crossover Records reach out to you?
I think they all kind of came at the same time. After our dad had passed away, because both of us were kind of under the impression that music was done for us. Gotcha. And after our dad passed away, we both kept coming to each other like at different times, like, hey, I don't think this is done. I think we both kind of felt like the Lord was calling us back to it. We did what we could in the moment, you know, like trying to practice, trying to rebuild a band, like just trying to get to where we could even play songs again. And like kind of nothing was panning out, and we were both kind of struggling with frustration. And I was praying about it one day, and I really just felt the Lord tell me, you know, you're going to have to ask for help. And I was like, okay, well, who do I ask? And Brian and I had been friends. So I was like, all right, I guess I could ask him. And it started simply as like, hey, can I ask you for some advice? Like, what would you do if you were me in this situation? You know, I shared with him where we were at, what I was thinking, and I asked him what he would do. And his first response was, let's go meet with my manager. And then from that turned into, hey, we're getting ready to start a small record label. Would you want to put a record out? So it was very like easy. I joke with him about that. And his response always is, well, the music is really good. I wouldn't have done it if the music wasn't really good, which I agree. But at the same time, I'm still like, it was just such a nonchalant, like easy, smooth, like situation.
Yep.
Everything Brian does is in a nonchalant kind of way.
Yeah. No, and it really was. which is kind of mind blowing to me. But then it also, like, as I say that out loud right now, I'm like, what else are we missing out on because we're not like really following the Lord and asking for His help?
Yeah. But the timing is everything.
100%. 100%.
Obviously, your father, your dad, meant a lot, was huge influence on your life. If you could talk to him right now, what would you tell him about what's happening in your life?
Oh man, he was he was the biggest supporter of basically anything we ever wanted to do, no matter what it was when we were growing up. The band wouldn't have ever started if it wasn't for him and his help. And he always continued to support us no matter what. He bought my first amp and our first drum set. He was excited that we were even talking about maybe doing it again. I remember my brother even mentioned about going on the road again, and he was like, "Let's do it, Bubba," basically. And
Oh,
so I would just probably thank him for all his support. And I mean, I wouldn't even really have to tell him anything because I know he'd be right here with us, like alongside of it. And like,
yeah. Sound like he was a real proud dad.
he was, yeah, our lives could have been very different if we wouldn't have had him. I'll just leave it at that.
You guys are your dad's legacy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is the name of the new album?
The name of the album is Zircon Avenue.
Can we hear about a couple of the songs, maybe?
Well, Get Back Up, we wrote that one, for me, I feel like it's fairly obvious, but maybe it's not. We had felt like we were done. We had felt like we were down and out when it came to music. And that song for me is basically like, we kind of even went a little further back to our roots of like just punk rock in that song.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's real catchy.
Thank you. I was just like,
Love it.
That song is just about, you can get knocked down, you can get knocked out, but you can always get back up and you keep going. Just get back up, dust it off, and go for it.
Your anthem, pretty much, of life, right?
That's what that song is for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does Get Back Up mean to you, Jimmy?
I think it really is the same thing. It's kind of what life really is. You get knocked down a lot, but what really matters is, the choice to get back up or stay down. And the song really started with, I got off of work one night and I was thinking about our dad, in my opinion, had one of like the smoothest singing voices I've ever heard, like a Willie Nelson type of voice. And unfortunately, I'd always had this dream and idea of like recording a song with him singing on it with us. And unfortunately, the times when we were recording music that could have been a possibility, he was battling alcoholism, where he was actually like sober and would have been able to do it. We weren't playing music. And I was kind of just contemplating that one night after work, and it hit me. I was like, what if I can find his voice on a video and incorporate it in some way into a song? And I was just thinking him talking. And so literally the hey ya in Get Back Up is taken from a video of our dad. So the song was inspired by our dad, and the hey ya came from him actually saying that in a video.
I love that. Any of your other songs have any secrets?
I mean, I think the secret to everything is authenticity. And every single song on the record has something to do with a moment in life that we're being just authentic and transparent about. And hopefully, they're not all hard situations, but some of them are hard situations that we're turning into hope-filled situations.
Yeah. What about Lean Back, Jimmy?
For that one, it was just really personal stuff about like childhood stuff. And I think really just kind of moving into a space. I don't even know if I knew it as much when we wrote it as I'm beginning to understand now. That you can really, really rest in the fact that the Lord is good, and no matter what happens or what life looks like. It's really about, life is hard, but we can rest in it.
That lean back part for me is always just kind of like lean back, let go, and let God.
Yeah. There's a pretty big gap between your previous album and this latest album. Is there anything that you're doing different? How have things changed for you? Maybe your outlook on music, or maybe how you do music?
I think we're kind of relearning all over again, honestly. I think we're relearning. The music industry changes so fast
It really has changed a bunch
Yeah.
since then.
We kind of came back in with a little bit of understanding, but I think we're also relearning everything again.
How about a most memorable fan interaction?
One for me, I mean, I've remembered other ones, but one for me that always sticks out. I never even met this person. It was like a message on one of the social medias back in the day. He found our CD in like some type of Goodwill store up in like Oregon somewhere.
Yeah.
But it was just the CD itself. He never knew who we were, and then he finally found us. And he told me how this song that I had written about like the transition into adulthood, and like I didn't get to hang out with my friends as much anymore. That's what the song was about for me, but he told me how much it helped him like through a breakup.
Wow.
So I think that for me, that was when I realized, okay, like this music, once I write it, it doesn't really matter what I wrote it about. It matters what I relate to it.
100%.
So that's my most memorable, and that's honestly, I don't know, probably from like 20 years ago. I don't even know.
Speaking of finding music, what are y'all rocking these days musically? What do y'all like?
I really like a lot of different music. I think right now there's a young man named Forrest Frank. I think his new record that he just released might be the best record I've heard in years and years.
I've heard of him, but I haven't listened to him. I might have to check him out. Before we go, name the album again and where they can find you guys.
Zircon Avenue. That is the street we grew up on when we were kids. You can find us on every major social media platform, every major streaming platform. The record is available on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Amazon Music, YouTube Music. You name it, you can find it.
Yeah, and we'll have all those links on our website on y'all's landing page. And you got merch, too.
We do right now, yes. We have our Dose of Adolescence like logo merch up. We have some hats, some T-shirts, some baseball T-shirts. We hope to have some more stuff up in the near future.
Well, what's next? Touring?
That is ultimately the goal for this upcoming year. We are also going to mainstream rock radio next month with Get Back Up, and then we are hopefully going to be getting on the road at some point in the early 2025.
Nice.
We won't have anything set in stone just yet.
All right. Well, we'll be looking for that. I appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you. Thank you for having us.
We appreciate you.
Yeah. We'll just let you get on with your day, and I hope I get to see you out on the road sometime.
That would be amazing.
All right. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for more great music. And don't forget to check out my blog page on the Solid Rock Radio website for my guests' official social media links. And hey, did you know you can listen to all Backstage with Mothership interviews on your phone through the Solid Rock Radio app or on all major podcast platforms? Back episodes are also available on YouTube and TikTok. Have a wonderful week, and let's be kind to one another.